China is in trouble. Something pretty crazy is going on in China. So China is in for a really big collapse coming soon. I'm not saying that China is going to cease to exist, but it's going to fall back in terms of its economic powerhouse and its well-being. If you guys don't know, obviously, after finally Mao died, Deng Xiaoping took power in China, and he opened up the markets, and it, ended up receiving investment and becoming labor intensive and doing incentives for rural farm growing and stuff like that. So it did a multiple prong approach in growing its economy. And after doing that, after making capitalist turn, it took like 500 million people out of poverty in China. So if you're wondering why it is that people in China are okay with the dictatorship that they have now, they used to have the dictatorship under Mao as well, but everyone was starving to death from famines because Mao killed all of the sparrows, and now the worms were eating all of the grain. They're going to be content with that because now they're not starving to death. Now 500 million people have been taken out of poverty ever since, the 70s when the market was opened up. I mean, that level of economic growth I don't think has ever been seen before, that kind of speed of economic growth. But it's coming to a point where it's coming down. There are multiple levels to why China is going to collapse. One of them is that their population is a big problem because they have a lot of old people. They have a really big population. But because of their one-child policy, which has been reversed like 6-7 years ago, but it's way too late. Way too late. These like countries now, the social security systems, the retirement systems require a certain amount of middle-aged workers who can work to support those retirees. But because of the one-child policy, you now have an issue where there simply won't be anywhere close to enough people to support those retirees. So then what you're going to have to do is either you raise the retirement age, or that's going to obviously cause a huge backlash amongst old people because they're tired of working, obviously, and they want to retire. So you have that issue, or it's just going to collapse. There are different things that you can try to do. But that's a huge problem. I mean, your entire system is going to collapse if this problem persists, which is going to, right? It's too late. But there's another issue with China that's going to cause it to collapse, and it is the housing market. And so it's completely fake. The housing market in China is entirely 100% fake. It's not real. There's entire ghost towns where nobody lives in them, but it's common to own property. It's like a necessity almost, social status wise, to own property. But the thing is, these properties don't have real value because nobody actually lives in them. So it's fake. It's essentially just given its value from the government, but nobody actually lives in them. So they're not of real value. It's just ghost towns. It's completely fake. So it says China's property distress sours steel sector and warning sign for economy. So their real estate market is, I think, their biggest sector of GDP in China. So anytime you have like something like that, like a finished good, like a home, there's so many input goods that go into that, raw materials, like intermediate materials that are used. Those are all going to be impacted when you have this issue. Now, because of this ghost town and this huge inflationary problem, what Xi Jinping has tried doing now is he's actually trying to make it harder to purchase a home. It looks like he's made it so that the credit line for purchasing homes has gone down. He's made it harder, and there was also, I don't know if the property tax that he wanted to put in place went through or not, but I did a video, you can check that out, about a property tax that he got a lot of backlash for because that property tax would, again, make it more expensive to own a home. And what that would do is, when you increase prices, generally the quantity demanded goes down. So the quantity demanded will go down, supply will start to go down because less people want homes. It'll bring the price down. So, especially if they continue to build more. So he wanted to do that because he doesn't want what happened in the U.S. with all the fake homes that they weren't fake homes, but people just couldn't afford the homes. So this one's different. They can afford the homes, but the value that they're purchasing them at is not what they're really worth. And same thing happened in the U.S., but in the U.S. people couldn't afford them. So it's not the same issue exactly. It's a bit different, but he wanted to prevent something like that from happening in China. So it says debt problems at a major Chinese property developer have now spilled over into a vital artery of the nation's industrial engine, the steel sector, and started to ripple through to other critical parts of the world's second largest economy. The spreading balance sheet crisis at real estate firms is a warning for policymakers, as a swing in the fortunes of the steel industry would have significant repercussions for China's economy, with cement, glass, and household appliances all vulnerable to demand drops. Already, steel prices are down from their record highs seen earlier this year due to easing demand from construction activities, which account for over half of the metal's consumption. Holy crap. While steelmakers' share prices have also been hurt. So, you make it harder to purchase homes, less people purchase homes, construction then goes down due to lower demand because the quantity demanded has gone down because, obviously the price has become more expensive by putting property taxes and making it more difficult to purchase. And so if an input good for homes, which is steel, that finished good, the demand for that goes down. Well, obviously the demand for the input good is also going to go down. Less people are going to buy steel because there just isn't as much housing. And it's saying that I guess half of steel's consumption is, from creating homes. So obviously that's going to have a huge ripple effect. So steel's acute sensitivity to the ebbs and flows in construction and manufacturing makes it a closely tracked bellwether for China's economy, which has started to slow down from the second quarter. Steel firms are also massive employers that support a vast supply chain. So this is also going to be another issue. Obviously, the steel industry, the firms are going to lay off people because there's not as much demand. You're also going to have an unemployment issue. It says hitting steel operations, real estate developers have dialed back investment in projects to conserve cash in a sector squeezed by tight borrowing regulations that have engulfed indebted companies, most notably China Evergrande Group. We normally stockpile steel products in winter at relatively lower prices and sell them after the New Year's holidays when consumption resumes, but we are holding off this year, a Beijing-based steel trader. There's still uncertainty in the real estate market for 2022, and the situation is not expected to be fully reversed for another 6 to 12 months. So this is essentially, it's a problem that you see from the decrease in demand due to more constraints on purchasing housing. And so this is going to have a huge ripple effect. Not only is, I think the biggest share, like the plurality share of the GDP is coming from property, which is huge, man. That is fucking massive. But then you have, within that, there's so many firms, so many industries that are a part of that demand for housing, like steel. I'm sure it's it's probably gonna impact iron ore too, that's raw good. Iron ore is the raw good that's used to make steel, so that's gonna be impacted too. So all these firms are gonna lay people off. General net worths are gonna go down because the prices go down for these places. They never had the value to begin with, and so now they're kind of getting into the issue of like, oh shit, we have to figure this out. It says in the final quarter of 2021, the property market took a further hit as the unease in the sector shook already weak buyer sentiment, with unsold housing stock in China's 100 biggest cities reaching a 5-year high in November. Demand for homes is expected to ease further in 2022, hitting downstream manufacturers of household products. So then you even have household products that are going to be impacted, because now that people aren't buying the houses, household products are going to also lower in demand, right? So like complementary goods. So that's going to also go down in demand. Cement production and other construction material was down around 16% for September-November year on year, and was lower versus the same period between 2017 and 2019. Demand for earth excavators has also dropped off in recent months. The broadening spillover impact of the property downturn is also seen elsewhere. In the appliances industry, for example, monthly refrigerator output has been falling since May through to November on an annual basis. Steel producers were among the best performers of the entire Chinese economy over the first 3 quarters of 2021, with China's 28 major listed mills pocketing over 106 billion yuan in net profits, up 174% year on year and 129% higher than the pre-pandemic in 2019. But the boom times in the steel sector are over. The paralysis that has struck China's mammoth construction industry is triggering a rare contraction in building activity across the country. New construction starts by floor area have contracted from a year earlier since July, their longest stretch of decline since 2015. And so, it goes on to explain these more, and, It's just crazy. You can see what's going on. It says property related sectors are the single biggest contributor to China's economy, accounting for 28% of GDP in 2021, down from a recent peak of 35% in 2016. So here's the thing, man. What goes up must come down. What China has experienced is literal economic growth the world has never, ever seen. That level of economic growth, where it was something like crazy average of like 10% GDP increases, like I think annually. Finally Mao had died, and they opened up the markets, and so obviously it was going to improve. It went crazy and improved at rates the world has never seen. But eventually what goes up must come down. But this is just all fake. The Chinese property never had any value to begin with. It was just fake value created by governments giving it those prices, and then having cheap, easy loans and easy debt, low property taxes, if any. And so it's just an easy thing to buy, but nobody actually lived in them. They're ghost towns, so there's no actual value to these homes. So it's interesting. It's a different problem than what was going on in the U.S. in 2008. In 2008, a bunch of people were buying homes, living in them, but they just couldn't afford it. They didn't have enough money to actually pay for it. In China, they have enough money to pay for it, but obviously you're going to see that there's going to be a quantity demanded drop when you have more expensive items. So housing being more expensive, you're going to have quantity demanded go down, and then quantity demanded for all of those household appliances, goods that use steel, all of this stuff is it's all going to go down. So those firms are all going to lay people off. That's going to lead to more unemployment. It's just like this is going to have a gigantic ripple effect, and who knows what banks are tied with what in terms of this. I don't know how derivatives work over there, and if you have like CDOs and stuff that just like box together all kinds of different mortgages, not just mortgages but different loans. I mean, if you have a bunch of loans in a box and then a bunch of them go shit, the whole box goes to shit. So is that what's going to happen? I don't know, but China they're going to be in trouble here soon. Are they going to disappear? Of course not, but they're certainly going to go through some economic downturn for sure.